Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indie Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indie Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indie Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indie Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 14:30 a.m. if you're in the Indianapolis area. Later today, from noon to 3, I will be at the Indiana State Fair handing out L's in the first annual Dan Dockich three-point shootout. It'll go on during his show. It'll be great. I'll sit there. I'll beat you as Dan watches, and then he'll talk trash about you on the air. It'll be great. So make sure you get out to the State Fair. It's $2 Tuesday, and you get to shoot a little bit of hoops. Like, what more could you ask for? It's going to be a great day. So make sure you get out to the Indiana State Fair. Stop by the booth so I can give you an L. It's free. Okay? And I've got people asking me over in the YouTube chat, Indie Sports Ticket again, if you want to head over there and subscribe, asking me why I'm doing the show from the studio today. I'm doing it for the YouTube audience. Okay? If you watch on YouTube, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. And we wanted to make sure that we had that available for you today. So, preseason football, it is in full swing. We had a full weekend of it. Colts obviously played against the Ravens on Thursday night. Anthony Richardson, it was supposed to be his time to shine, and he comes out, second drive, dislocates his pinky, done for the rest of the game. They go to Daniel Jones, who plays for the rest of the first half. That is the plan against the Packers as well on Saturday. Daniel Jones is going to get the start. He'll play a couple drives, and then it'll be Anthony Richardson the rest of the way. And if you watched the game on Thursday against the Ravens, you probably aren't very encouraged by this Indianapolis Colts team and what all they have going on. They couldn't stop the run. The secondary played well, to their credit. But then again, you didn't play Lamar Jackson. So, of course, the secondary looked good. The Colts didn't run the ball very well, and Daniel Jones didn't look very good. And that was the most concerning thing, right? Because we're all offseason. We are just hyper-focused on Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson. Who's going to be the Colts starting quarterback? Who is going to lead the Colts to a mediocre season? Maybe. And there was kind of an opportunity there for Daniel Jones to step up and really kind of take hold of the job, and he didn't do it. Daniel Jones was 10 of 21 for 144 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. And it was, I believe, if I remember correctly, the second preseason game of the year, right? We saw the Lions and the Chargers do the Hall of Fame game, and but that had been like a week prior to the Colts and the Ravens. And so you kind of forget what good quarterback play looks like until you watch Daniel Jones and, Dan Orlovsky was trying to explain how he played well. I understand that there were some drops in there, but there was nothing that made you say, wow. There was nothing that jumped off the screen. You're like, whoa, like that dude, that looks like a starting quarterback in the NFL. Nothing like that transpired during those Daniel Jones-led drives. And then we go into the weekend, and you get to watch all of these other quarterbacks play. And it was just another reminder of how dire this quarterback situation here in Indianapolis is. So what I decided to do is make a list of all the backup quarterbacks or potential backup quarterbacks who looked better than Daniel Jones did the first week of preseason. For reference, Daniel Jones was 10 of 21 for 140 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 0 moments that made you say, whoa. Shooter Sanders has to be on the top of this list. 14 of 23, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The touchdown passes, both of them, were pretty outstanding. And he just looked more physically talented than Daniel Jones. I thought he moved better. Whenever he threw the football, there's a little bit more zip on it. He was clearly more athletic. He just looked more like an NFL quarterback than Daniel Jones did. Tyler Shuck, the second-round pick for the Saints, who is, in the middle of a battle with Spencer Rattler for who's going to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints and win a whopping 3 games this year. So, honestly, I don't think I would want to win that position battle. But, hey, he was 15 of 22, 165 yards passing, one touchdown, and 1 interception. He hit a big-time explosive play for a touchdown. The Colts didn't have anything like that with Daniel Jones playing quarterback. Everything was safe underneath. He had the one play to Ashton Doolin. It felt like a lot of his yards passing, Daniel Jones, came after the catch. Tyler Shuck, though, there was some underneath stuff, don't get me wrong, but there were a couple times where he was able to take the top off the defense. And it was because when he throws the football, he's got more juice on it than Daniel Jones does. Tyson Bagent belongs on this list as well, which isn't surprising. If you watched him play for the Bears at all, then you know that he's a really good backup. Is he a starter? I don't think so, but he's a really good backup. 13 of 19 passing, 103 yards, and 1 touchdown. And, he looked like he was in control the entire time. And that's the other thing. Like there were some moments with Daniel Jones where I didn't always feel like he had full control of the offense. It felt like he was just kind of a piece of the offense as opposed to running the offense, if that makes sense. When Tyson Bagent was on the field for the Bears against the Dolphins, he was in control. He was making audibles. Like he was in charge of everything. And it just didn't feel like that with Daniel Jones, and that's probably not a fair thing because he just moved over here. But at the same time, Tyson Bagent is learning the Ben Johnson offense, which everyone says is super complex. So I don't know. I just felt like Tyson Bagent was in control of the offense the entire time, and I didn't really feel that way with Daniel Jones. Jarrett Stidham definitely looked better than Daniel Jones. No questions about it. 14 of 15, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 passing touchdown. It's just deep ball, put it right in the basket. Just an incredible throw. Couldn't have thrown it any better than what he did. And I mean, he did it in every way. He threw the ball downfield. He threw the ball underneath. He, threw the ball in a position where guys could catch and run. He looked like he had full command of the offense. He looked awesome in that game. Looked way better than Daniel Jones did. Stetson Bennett IV, the backup quarterback in LA, also looked better than Daniel Jones. 16 of 24 passing, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Just ripping it. He just absolutely ripping the football. It was awesome to watch. This short, not even 6 foot tall quarterback sit in the pocket and just fire missiles. 16 of 24, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And a lot of his stuff was thrown down the field. One of my biggest critiques with Daniel Jones is I just don't like the lack of aggressiveness when he plays quarterback. It's a lot of safe throws. It's a lot of easy things, which is good. But you have to have a quarterback that from time to time raises the level of risk when you really need a first down or you're in 2 minutes and you have 1 timeout and you need a chunk play at some point. Like you have to have a quarterback who is capable of raising the level of risk and making that risky throw. Watching Daniel Jones in that first preseason game, he never raised the level of risk, and the lack of juice, the lack of zip on the football makes me question whether or not he has the arm strength to make those really tight throws. Stetson Bennett, no question about it. Ball popped out of his hand. He made throws down the field. He made throws inside the pocket, outside the pocket, on the move. He looks really good after a preseason last year where he looked really bad. Sam Howell also on the list, 11 of 13 passing, 105 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Same thing. The dude just ripping the football. I mean, like throwing everything past the sticks. It looked good, and like the ball just saying it exploded out of his hand would be hyperbole. But you could tell that he just looked like an NFL quarterback in the way that he threw the football. Daniel Jones doesn't. Jackson Dart, I thought, looked better than Daniel Jones. 12 of 19 passing, 154 yards, and 1 touchdown. there was a lot of underneath completions. They ran a decent amount of screens for him. There were a couple plays where he hit a guy underneath, and then they would squirt out for an extra, 10 or 15 yards. And like, that's fine. Like, you can throw the football underneath. I do not mind that. But from time to time, to keep the defense honest, you have to take the top off. And Jackson Dart did that. He had a couple throws downfield where I was like, wow, like that piques my interest. That's a really impressive play. Daniel Jones never had a moment like that. I was like, wow, you can do something with that. Like, that never happened. Even for, guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, the guys who were drafted somewhere, didn't really pan out, and then they, were traded and or moved or left in free agency. And then, several years later, there's like, oh, wow, like they look good. Like, all those guys had something like that. Sam Darnold would have throws where it's like, oh, jeez, like what a throw there. Golly. Geno Smith would avoid pressure and slip out of the pocket and then find someone. It's like, wow, like the athleticism. Like, there's clearly something there. Baker Mayfield has a really strong arm. And there are moments where, he would tough something out and he'd pick up a really tough first down. And you're just like, gee, man, like what a run there. What a play. You never feel like that when you're watching Daniel Jones. There's never that moment where his talent seeps through and you're just like, yeah, that dude could be a franchise quarterback if he's in the right system. Like, that is never a thought when you watch Daniel Jones. With Jackson Dart, I had a couple of those thoughts. Tanner McKee, best preseason performance of any backup quarterback. 20-25, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns, made every throw, short, intermediate, over the linebackers, in front of the safeties, putting some pace on it to guys on the outside, hitting deep shots as well. Just looked in total control of the Eagles offense. Just really, really impressive. The game was over, and I was like, I think the Colts should make a call. When it comes to Daniel Jones in the preseason and the snaps that we've seen from him, and we're going to get to see a few more. He's set to play a couple of drives against the Packers. When it comes to Daniel Jones in the preseason, I didn't expect him to just wow me, but I was hoping that there'd be a couple of moments where it's like, oh, wow. Like, that's really impressive. And there just weren't. And that's, I think, the most disappointing part of it. If the Colts had come out of that game and Daniel Jones had a play or two where, he scrambles around and then he finds a guy like 25 yards down the field and then he throws it and there's zip on it, or if he had just like, if he could have thrown a slant route and the ball just popped out of his hand and it just looked a little bit different, then, like, I would feel very differently about the Colts and this quarterback battle. But there weren't any moments like that. And it seems to me like 21 passing attempts should be that should be a great enough sample size for us to have a moment or two where it's like, oh, like look at that. Like, that's impressive. That's why he was the number 6 overall pick. And there wasn't. Like, Shedeur Sanders threw the football 23 times, and there were multiple instances where it's like, wow. Like, both touchdown passes were wow moments. He had a couple plays where he would, evade pressure and then find someone, and that's another like wow moment. Tyler Shucks, same thing. He threw the football 22 times, and there were 2 plays, the bomb for a touchdown, and then there was another play where he just stood strong in the pocket, stepped up, and fired a missile over the middle for a first down on like 3rd and 9. Like there were a couple moments in there. It's like, all right, like I get why the Saints took him. Jarrett Stidham it felt like every throw was like that. Stetson Bennett had several where he would, avoid pressure and get out of the pocket and make a throw. Jackson Dart, I went through those plays already. Multiple instances where I was like, yeah, that's why the Giants took him. Tanner McKee, same thing. Daniel Jones didn't have any of them. And those little plays here and there are what give you hope that you can win games at some point with the guy. It's why people still have hope for Anthony Richardson. Because say what you want about him, but the throw against Houston still sits in everyone's mind. And you're just like, wow, whether you like him or not, whether you think he should be the starting quarterback or not, like you have to admit that throw piques your interest. And you're like, geez, like if he can do that, if we can just get him to wrangle it in a little bit, then we'll feel really good about him. You know, the game against the Jets where Anthony Richardson made every throw. Like that has to pique your interest. And it's what keeps people buying into Anthony Richardson even after a really bad first 2 seasons. Daniel Jones doesn't have anything like that. There is no juice whatsoever with Daniel Jones, and that is the issue. The Colts need hope. They need an injection of life, and Daniel Jones isn't going to give them that. Anthony Richardson just might, though. Yesterday, the Colts had another practice. They are going to have a joint practice against the Green Bay Packers coming up on Thursday. That'll be a lot of fun. So, we'll obviously keep you in tune on everything going on in those scrimmages. But, they practiced yesterday, and, Colts fans are just crazy. It's a good thing. I'm glad that people around here are so passionate about the Colts. But you've got to calm down just a little bit. Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both had really good practices yesterday, but it doesn't mean anything. And I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
August is Pet Appreciation Month. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $129. 15% off pet odor treatments and take $50 off air duct cleaning. Book online at ZeroResIndy.com and tell them that Indy Sports Ticket sent you.
minutes in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. If you would like to lose in a 3-point shootout, then head out to the Indiana State Fair today between noon and 3. I will be out there handing out L's. And speaking of L's, the Colts, because they're going to be taking a lot of them this year. Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both had great practices yesterday. You know, like you're scrolling through X and you see all these, Indianapolis Colts insiders talking about how, Anthony Richardson's had his best 11-on-11 day yet. Oh, Daniel Jones looks sharp today. I'm just kidding. No insider tweeted that because no insider ever wants to talk about or ask about Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones went 21 of 28 throwing the football. That's 75% for my math majors out there. He was 21 or 28 throwing the football during the 11-on-11 session yesterday at practice. And Anthony Richardson was 18 of 23. That's 78% completion percentage during 11-on-11s. And, as I said, saw some tweets. He was about how great Anthony Richardson looked. And if you ask Colts fans, Anthony Richardson was definitely better than Daniel Jones yesterday because he completed a higher percentage of his passes. And that's all that we really care about here in Indianapolis. Forget the fact that Anthony Richardson threw a really bad interception. No. It's all about completion percentage. That is the only statistic that matters. Now, the interception he threw was pretty bad. Apparently, and Colts fans, you hold on to your hats for this one. You might jump out of your seat when you hear what I'm about to say. Apparently, Lou Anarumo showed Anthony Richardson an exotic blitz look. An exotic blitz look from an Indianapolis Colts defense? Oh my gosh. Haven't heard that phrase attached to Colts defense ever or in a really long time. No more vanilla cover 3 from Gus Bradley. I mean, seriously, let's go. Isn't that wonderful? An exotic blitz look from the Indianapolis Colts defense. Oh man, that makes me so happy. And it led to an interception on Anthony Richardson's part. Apparently, Charvarius Ward baited him into throwing this comeback route to Michael Pittman Jr. And, Charvarius Ward being Charvarius Ward. By the way, people call him Mooney Ward. Don't know why, but if you hear someone say Mooney, they are talking about Charvarius Ward. Charvarius Ward jumped the route because he's a really good player. Aside from that, though, Anthony Richardson, by all accounts, was really good. Okay? And he should be. And this is the thing that people have to understand about training camp and practice. He should be really good in training camp. Daniel Jones should be really good in training camp because Justin Wally and Juju Brents and Jalen Jones aren't playing. Oh, also, Kenny Moore didn't practice yesterday. So 4 of the Colts' 5 best cornerbacks did not play. Nick Cross didn't play either. That means they got Hunter Wohler playing strong safety. And the 5th best corner on this Colts roster was playing opposite Charvarius Ward. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson should be having field days. I'm surprised they didn't play better. Seriously, this is not a big deal. Also, when the offense plays well, does that mean the offense is good, or does that mean that the defense is bad? We've heard all training camp long about how well Anthony Richardson has played, and that's a really nice thing to hear. But isn't it also kind of concerning? You say, well, Jonathan, look, I get it. I get what you're getting at, but did you watch the preseason game? Did you see how the Colts dealt with the Ravens' backup receivers and backup quarterback? I did, but I don't know if I emphasized the word backup enough. Seriously, I just the Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones looked great at practice. Stuff is great, and it gets people excited. And I'm glad that people are excited for this football team that I don't think is going to be very good this year. But we have to remember that it's practice. Who cares? We're going to find out significantly more on Thursday when the Colts have their joint practice against the Green Bay Packers here in Indianapolis. So hopefully it goes well. By the way, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both led touchdown drives to close practice in their 2-minute drills. And they should, because they're playing against backups. Starters should look really good against backups. Now, Jonathan Taylor also had a good day yesterday. And this isn't just a Colts thing. This is an everywhere thing. When there's a quarterback competition, that story takes precedent over everything else. I have discussed the Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones quarterback competition more than anything else throughout this Colts offseason. From who are the Colts going to bring in to compete with Anthony Richardson? Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it going to be Kirk Cousins? Whatever. I have discussed that more than anything else because it is the biggest story of the camp. And when that happens, other important things get lost. This quarterback competition has buried the lead of the Colts offense. No matter who's playing quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor is the best player on this Colts roster. No question about it. By far, he is the best player on this Colts offense. And he has to be dominant again. Now, he's 26. Going to turn 27 during the season. So he's starting to get around the age where running backs start to fall off a little bit. But he's a few hundred carries away from the number of carries where running backs start to fall off. So there's a little bit of, solace in that statistic that we've got at least one more great year from Jonathan Taylor, right? Because that's what he's been, throughout his time in the league. He has been a great player, one of the, 10 best running backs in the NFL, really every year since he was drafted. And I think he's going to have a good year. He just has to stay healthy. He's only had 2 seasons in his career where he's eclipsed that 300 carry mark. His second year in the NFL, the year where he ran for 1,800 yards and was first team All-Pro. And last year he had a little over 300 carries in over 14 games. He needs to get to that mark again this year, but he needs to get to that 300 carry mark while playing in all 17 games. He missed a few games last year. And, that you could argue that's part of why the Colts didn't make the playoffs. They were missing their best offensive player in 3 games. And they're turning around having to hand the ball off to Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson. Good luck winning football games when that's the case. If you told me today that Jonathan Taylor would have 300 carries and play in all 17 games, I would probably take the Colts over 7.5 wins. That's a minimum of about 18 carries a game. He's hopefully going to get, a couple more touches than that. Maybe you throw it to him out of the backfield, or maybe you just hand the ball to him, a few more times. That'd be fine too. Now, not normally, always. I always prefer it when my best skill player on offense, obviously not non-quarterback, is a wide receiver. Because, receivers just seem to have a bigger impact on the game today just because it's more of a passing league than it has ever been before. The one advantage, though, for running backs is if a running back is your best skill player, it's much easier to get them the football. Seriously, like a great wide receiver, if they have 8 receptions, you're like, wow, that's really good. Like, that's big. That's a lot of receptions. If they break 10, whoo, you're like, wow, geez, what a year. Running back, though, here you go. Just turn around and you can hand it to them. It's significantly easier to get them the football, which is a really nice thing, and it's so important for this Colts offense. Could you imagine if they had like Justin Jefferson and we have to rely on Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones to throw him the football? Like, that would be terrible. That would not be fun at all. But because it's Jonathan Taylor, because they have a good running back, it should be easier to get the best player on their offense involved. And the Colts have a history of saving Jonathan Taylor for later in the season. They don't need to do that, but they do need to save him for the fourth quarter. Last year, there were multiple games where he would be the only running back to get a carry. Like, I think the second, they beat someone late in the year. Jonathan Taylor had 32 carries. No one else had one. Everyone else had 0. And like that hopefully won't be an issue this year. And I think that his load was a little too heavy. Look, being handed the football 30 times in a game is a lot. It is. Like, that is a lot. So the Colts using that 4th round pick on DJ Giddens, there was a reason for that. They went and got Khalil Herbert for a reason. The running back room this year is significantly better than it was last year. It was. And they have to use those guys, the Khalil Herberts and the DJ Giddens and the Tyler Goodsons on 3rd down. They have to use those guys to help Jonathan Taylor cross the finish line healthy. That is the only way that the Indianapolis Colts are going to have a chance to make the playoffs. Their best offensive player has to stay healthy all year. If he does, then he should have a big year where he runs for 1,500 yards and all that good stuff. Okay? And look, I have questions about the Colts' offensive line in terms of their ability to pass protect. But I do not have questions about their ability to run block. Like that offensive line, they move dudes. And yes, I know Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, 2 very important parts of the Colts offensive line last year, are gone. But Tanner Bortolini played a lot last year. And Matt Gonsalves played a pretty decent amount too. Last year, Jonathan Taylor averaged 102 yards rushing per game and 4.7 yards per carry. If the Colts can run the football like that again, then they will win games. Okay, because that's not even including what Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, whoever wins the starting job, is also going to do in the run game. Okay, the Colts were 9th in yards per carry last year. They ran the football 48% of the time last year, which was surprising. I thought that number would be lower. But 48%, pretty decent. But that number needs to be over 50%. This needs to be a run-first football team between the stable of backs that they have, Jonathan Taylor being one of the best running backs in the league, and they have a quarterback who has the ability to run the football. And then you throw in the fact that whoever is under center, I don't really trust them to throw the football on 1st and 2nd down. This has to be a run-first football team this year. The Colts had the 8th best rushing offense in the NFL last year. They should be a top 5 rushing offense this year between who they have playing quarterback, the stable of running backs, and Jonathan Taylor, and that offensive line. And if they can be a top 5 rushing offense, then they will have a decent chance at making the playoffs. But they're only going to be a top 5 rushing offense if Jonathan Taylor can stay healthy. Right? And it's not just about being able to run the football and do that, which is obviously important. But running the football makes everything easier on Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. And no matter who is the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, they need to make things as easy on them as possible. And a running back like Jonathan Taylor is a very easy and simple way to do that. College football is less than 2 weeks away. We're like 11 days away, I think, from college football, something like that. I can't wait. I'm sure that you're excited as well. August 23rd, my wife has a thing at Purdue, so she's going to be gone. I'm sitting down on the couch, good food, and I'm watching college football all day. Can't wait. It's going to be a blast. And your Indiana Hoosiers come in ranked 20th in the AP poll. And I love the preseason AP poll because it just makes everyone upset. And so I would like to cover all of the reasons why people are upset at the College Football Playoff AP poll when we come back in 4 minutes.
Tickets at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can, of course, also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. No matter how you're listening, though, it is greatly, greatly appreciated as always. Today, if you'd like to lose in a three-point shootout, noon to 3 at the fairgrounds, head out there, and I will gladly hand you a free L. The college football playoff AP poll is out, and as you know, as is tradition, college football fans are very upset by this college football AP poll. By the way, Texas, first team ever to open the season ranked number 1 and to open the season as an underdog. They are underdogs against Ohio State, which that game going to be awesome. Anyway, Indiana, they're ranked 20th. I think that's a pretty fair number. You know, ranked in front of teams like Ole Miss and Iowa State and Texas Tech and Tennessee and Boise State, but not quite as good as the Michigan and who's ranked, 14th, Illinois 12th, South Carolina's 13th. Kansas State's supposed to be pretty good again this year. So they're, I think Indiana's ranked pretty fairly. I'm sure IU fans would disagree with me on that though, because no one likes where their team is ranked unless you're Texas. And if you're an Ohio State fan, you're like, we're favored over Texas. Why aren't we ranked number 1? And all this kind of stuff. And it's just really funny. And there are a couple of things that happen every single year in college football, and I just kind of want to get out in front of them. Every year, there's a team ranked in the top 10 that finishes the year unranked. Last year, that was Florida State. This year, it's going to stay in the ACC, and I'm going to go with Miami, just simply because I'm not a believer in Carson Beck. A large part of why Miami won games last year was because of Cam Ward. And Carson Beck, I'm sorry, but you are not Cam Ward. You are absolutely not Cam Ward. And the rest of the teams, like, I have a pretty strong belief in. Like, I think Arch Manning at Texas is going to be pretty good, even if he's not the Texas defense is supposed to be nasty this year. Penn State, they returned a lot of their starters. Ohio State is Ohio State. I think you just kind of have to trust Ryan Day to win 11 games at this point. Clemson, they have a lot of returners. Cade Klubnik is back. Georgia, I think you just kind of have to believe in Kirby Smart. Like, you really think Georgia is going to finish the year unranked? Please. The defense is going to be nasty. Gunnar Stockton played in big games last year. Georgia will be fine. Notre Dame. I don't like Notre Dame. That's firmly on the record. With that being said, that program has a culture. They're going to run the football well, and they are going to play good defense. Notre Dame is going to finish the year ranked. I would be very, very surprised if they did not. Oregon, I think Dan Lanning is kind of in this, he's the new Ryan Day. He's going to win 11 games every year and then not win a national title. And we're all going to look around and be like, when is Dan Lanning going to win the big one? And then eventually he will. And then we'll move on to probably Kalen DeBoer, who's at Alabama. His team, they're ranked 8th. I get it. Alabama underachieved last year by barely missing the college football playoff in Kalen DeBoer's first year, after changing not everything, but a lot of things that happen at Alabama, right? Going from a defensive-minded guy, Nick Saban, to an offensive-minded guy, going from this work hard, grinded out culture under Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer, which obviously they're working hard and they're doing those things, but Kalen DeBoer is just a little bit more relaxed than Nick Saban is. So there's a culture shift there. I think Alabama's going to be fine. They're going to win, plenty of games this year, and they'll probably be ranked. LSU, I think they're a pretty popular selection to not be ranked at the end of the year, but Garrett Nussmeier's back, one of the better quarterbacks in the country. You know that LSU is going to have great wide receivers because they grow on trees down there. Brian Kelly, while I'm not a Brian Kelly fan and I find him to be incredibly overrated, he's going to win 9 games. And when LSU wins 9 games, they are ranked because their name is LSU. Miami, not the case. They'll probably win 8 games, and I think that they'll finish the season ranked just outside of the top 25. Now, Miami, there's my pick for one of the teams ranked in the top 10 that will finish the year unranked. Now, let's get to the stuff that really upsets people. There are 6 teams in the Big Ten that are ranked to start the year. So Big Ten fans, and I know you're all Big Ten fans, you can puff your chest out and say, absolutely, there are. We're going to be good. We got 2 teams inside the top 5, 3 teams inside the top 10. Big Ten, baby. Best conference in the country. No. The SEC has 10 teams ranked in this year's in the preseason poll. Okay. And, it's Georgia and Texas, 2 teams ranked in the top 5. They got 4 teams in the top 10, Texas, Alabama, and LSU and Georgia. Pretty impressive, right? And then it just kind of fills out the rest of the way. South Carolina should 1,000% be ranked 13th. It's a really, really good team. Oklahoma's Oklahoma. Their transfer quarterback, though, could be getting into a little bit of trouble. Apparently, he sent something on Venmo, and it said sports gambling on it, USC versus UCLA or whatever. I don't know. Look, I don't know if he did it or not. He could just be doing it as a joke. That's very possible. But, you have to prove it. It's probably just a 20-year-old kid being a 20-year-old kid and doing something dumb. But, so Oklahoma, by all accounts, should be better this year. Like, they have a real quarterback. That was their issue last year. Texas A&M is loaded with talent once again, as they always are. Ole Miss has Lane Kiffin, and they have a good quarterback, and they're going to be really fast, and they're going to score a bunch of points. They should probably be ranked. Tennessee, yeah, they should probably be ranked. They're still talented. So it's funny because what the preseason polls tell me every year, or what I think the goal of the preseason poll is, it is just to tell us where the talent is. Because there's no games to go off of. What I would like to think is that the voters in the AP poll sit back and they look at all the rosters every year. And they say, you know what? Like, they have a lot of Texas has the most talented roster in the country, so I'm going to put them number 1. And I think Penn State, with all their returners, I think they have the second best roster in the country. I'm going to put them number 2. Ohio State had a whole bunch of guys leave. They lost 8 guys, 8 starters on the defensive side of the football. So while it's Ohio State and they just won a national title, and I'm always going to believe in Ohio State, I know more about these 2 rosters, so I'm going to put Ohio State 3rd. The preseason rankings are just reflections of the rosters. And let's just be honest, most of the talent in the world of college football ends up in the SEC. The biggest recruiting bases in terms of like high school talent are down there. And now the transfer portal has evened some things out. I think that's really where the Big Ten has done a good job of making up ground on the SEC. I think that they recruit the portal better as a whole conference compared to the SEC. So most of the talent is in the SEC, so more teams are going to be ranked. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We tend to know who the truly elite teams in college football are every year before it begins. Teams ranked 1 through 5, barring any sort of injury, tend to be really good every single year. They do. Like if you go back to last year and you look at the preseason rankings, Georgia was ranked number 1. Georgia was really good at football last year. Ohio State was ranked 2nd. They won the national title. Oregon was ranked 3rd. They made the college football playoff, and they won the Big Ten. Texas was ranked 4th. They made the college football playoff, and we're in the semifinal. And if it's not for Jack Sawyer, then, they might move on and potentially win the national title. Alabama was 5th. Ole Miss was 6th. Both teams narrowly missed the playoff. They had Notre Dame 7th. They, obviously played for the national title. Penn State was 8th. But, you look at the top 4 teams, they were right on all four of them. All four of those teams ended up being great. And then everything after that, you're really just like, you don't know. No one does. And that's okay as far as I'm concerned. Last year, got this stat from the Bear over at Fox. Last year, of the teams ranked 16 through 25th in the preseason AP poll, only Miami, which finished the season ranked 18th, finished the year ranked. We know who the elite teams in college football are, but no one knows who the just like good football teams are. And that's part of what makes college football fun. That's part of the difference that, the transfer portal has made. And so I'm very intrigued to kind of see who's ranked, 8th through 25th at the end of the season, because we have a pretty good idea usually of who the truly elite teams in college football are going to be. And it's usually the teams ranked in the top 5. Indiana basketball went undefeated on their trip to Puerto Rico. I don't think that you learn much from these trips in terms of how good the team is, but I do think that you learn things about how they're going to play. And the thing that I'm most excited about is this Indiana basketball team. They're going to chuck threes, baby. They are going to get them up. And that is just going to be so refreshing after watching the anemic Mike Woodson offense that was just terrible. It was so bad. High ball screen. Oh, it didn't work. How about we set another high ball screen for Trey Galloway? Oh, it didn't work. What if we set another high ball screen, but this time we set it on the wing as opposed to the top of the key? See if that didn't work either. What if we just throw the ball to Ballo on the block and see if he can score? Oh, we threw up a raggedy hook shot that went in and out. Okay, let's go play defense now. That was Indiana's offense last year. Not fun to watch. Ball didn't move. Just bad. No way around it. Ball's going to move this year. There's real shooting on the roster. All right, Indiana fans, you are no longer relying on Luke Goody to be the knockdown 3-point shooter for this team, which is great. That makes me very happy because Luke Goody never seemed to make threes in big spots. So Indiana basketball, they're going to shoot more threes. Seems like they're going to play at a faster pace. There seems to be a little bit more offensive firepower, right? Playing a couple games in the 80s. Indiana never did that under Mike Woodson. I also think that their ability to get down big, they had 2 really big comeback wins where they were down by a lot, like 20 plus, and they had to come back. I think that shows evidence of the firepower that this Indiana basketball team is going to have. I think it shows some competitiveness. I think it shows the ability to really kind of lock in on the defensive end of the floor and get multiple stops in a row. I never felt like the Mike Woodson coached Indiana basketball teams got multiple stops in a row. Like the 8-0 runs felt like they never happened for Indiana. And I think that is going to be a much more common occurrence this year under Coach DeVries because, one, the offensive firepower, there's a little bit more offensive juice. And as we just saw them do in Puerto Rico, they can have long stretches where they really lock in and they really guard. So we'll see. It seems like there's not a ton of size this year for Indiana. We'll see if they can overcome that. If you make a bunch of threes, then you absolutely can. So we'll kind of see how Indiana basketball looks as the season gets going. We are less than 3 months away from it, less than 2 weeks away from college football. We're, 3 weeks or so away from the start of the NFL season. It is all slowly coming around, and I can't wait for all of it, especially the Colts. I'm just kind of ready to know who the starting quarterback for the Colts is going to be. Hopefully we find out at some point after the Packers game, after this joint practice, and obviously the preseason game as well on Saturday. Hopefully we'll have a pretty good idea. I hope it's not Daniel Jones because he looked pretty awful in that preseason game. There's a whole list of quarterbacks There's a whole list of backup quarterbacks who looks better than Daniel Jones. I'll give you that list when we come back in 4 minutes.
Indianapolis is built for speed, electricity, and non-stop action. So was Live Golf. So where better for our teams to compete for the title? Join legends like Rahm, DeChambeau, Koepka, and Mickelson as their teams jostle for pole position, with music legends Riley Green and Jason Derulo providing the live soundtrack. All at Chatham Hills, August 15th to 17th. But hurry, tickets are already flying out the gate. So grab yours now at livegolf.com.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps, and of course 1430 a.m. as well. The Dan Dockett Show today is live from the fair between noon and 3. Head out to the fair. Walk over to the booth, and while you're over there, you can take on me, the best shooter in the state of Indiana, in a 3-point contest. If you want to test your skills against the best, let's go. Let's do it today, noon to 3. Show up, and let's get to work. Now, speaking of working, Daniel Jones, not convinced that he's working. Just sorry, not fully convinced on that. That preseason outing against the Ravens last week, it was just rough, brutal, not very good. You know, just a lot of underneath stuff. Nothing that really made you say, "Oh wow, like what a throw!" Like there was nothing like that, and you know that's why people still believe in Anthony Richardson, because there's been multiple wow moments. Like, gee, like the week 1 throw against the Texans, where he slips and then just chucks it and he hits Alec Pearson's stride, and you're just like, geez, wow, what a play. It is the only reason, not that throw alone, but the multiple wow plays. You know, like against the Texans, where he throws a 300-pound defensive tackle off his back and then scrambles out of the pocket and throws away. Throws away. You're just like, geez, like what a specimen, you know? The plays where he runs over corners and outruns linebackers and gets the edge. You just go, wow, like, geez, like, what an athlete. That can keep you in the conversation. That can keep you in the NFL. And in this case, it can keep you in the competition to be the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. And Daniel Jones didn't have any moments like that in that game against the Ravens on Thursday night. It was a lot of, yeah, he made that throw. All right. I think that I could make that throw, but hey, good for him. It was just a lot of, yeah, like that didn't look too difficult. It's a lot of, yeah, I think that there's, 7 other quarterbacks in the NFL, or excuse me, there's, 37 other quarterbacks in the NFL who can make that throw. That was the feeling while watching Daniel Jones try to play quarterback for the Colts on Thursday night against the Ravens. He finished the night 10 of 21 for 144 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. Now, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit yesterday, and I talked about the importance of having a routine, and sometimes when your routine gets thrown off, you can struggle a little bit. The Colts went into that game against the Ravens with a pretty clear plan. Anthony Richardson for a quarter and a half, Daniel Jones to close the quarter. And then, obviously, Anthony Richardson gets hurt on that second drive, and it was Daniel Jones the rest of the way, right? Like that could throw off your rhythm a little bit. So I do try to give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard, and I'm very intrigued to see how he looks on Saturday when he starts the game, and he knows he's going to start the game, and things actually go according to plan, and he's throwing the football to Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, because the starters for the Colts are set to play in the first quarter. I don't know what the Packers are doing yet in terms of whether or not they plan on playing starters or not. But the Packers are very well coached, and that's a very good football team who, the more I think about it, the more I like them to win the NFC North. So we're going to see Daniel Jones once again against some pretty good competition. Now, the issue, speaking of competition, is there are a lot of quarterbacks who looked better than Daniel Jones did week 1 of the preseason. And I made a list. So once again, for reference, Daniel Jones was 10 of 21 for 144 yards, no touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Shooter Sanders looked better than Daniel Jones did. 14 of 23, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But physically, he just looked better. He just looked more talented. He appeared to be more athletic. When he threw the football, there was some real zip on it. He made a couple plays where you were like, geez, like what a what a play, where he would evade a sack. Like the number of times that he slipped out of the pocket to avoid pressure and to avoid being sacked was really impressive, because sacks are drive killers. You cannot get sacked. Like, that is an absolute no-no. And so I thought Shedeur Sanders did a really good job of avoiding sacks. And there were a couple times where he'd slip out of the pocket and he'd make a really nice play on the move. Both touchdown passes were really good throws, especially the first one. I mean, just like right on the money. If it's a little higher, it's probably batted away. If it's a little bit lower, then the underneath linebacker probably tips it or picks it off. Just there were a couple of wow moments when I watched Shedeur Sanders. Tyler Shuck had a really brutal day for the Saints. Not really brutal. That's probably a little mean, but the day wasn't great. 15 of 22, 165 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Now, the touchdown was awesome because he took the top off the defense. Drop back, play action, whoop, getting the ball in the air 40 yards downfield, hitting his guy in stride, and then he's off to the races. Okay, he threw a bad pick. It's all right. It happens. He's a rookie. But there were moments in there where it's like, this guy's got some juice. I understand why the Saints wanted to take him in the second round. The deep ball for the touchdown, and then there's another play where you see him climb the pocket and just rip one over the middle. I mean, just had put so much juice on the throw. It was really impressive. And, athletically, he didn't look great, but you can tell that he can really spin it. Tyson Bagent, he looked good in a different way. Like, there wasn't any, wow moments, but you could tell that he had really good control of the offense. Like, he just looked like he knew what he was doing and that he was leading the offense. I didn't feel that way with Daniel Jones, and it's not really a fair thing for me to say because I don't understand enough about how offenses work, and I don't understand the checks that Daniel Jones is making at the line and all that kind of stuff. But it felt like, Shane Steichen's play calling was like dragging Daniel Jones along, as opposed to Daniel Jones being like, you know what, I got this. Whereas with Tyson Bagent, I didn't really feel that way with him. I felt like he was in charge and he was leading the Bears offense against the Miami Dolphins defense. Jarrett Stidham had an amazing time playing quarterback for the Broncos in their preseason game against the 49ers. 14 of 15, 136 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He just did everything. I really wish that Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson would have a performance like this against somebody. Because if you have a performance similar to what Jarrett Stidham had against the 49ers, then you're just checking every box. Jarrett Stidham, 14 of 15, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. He just did everything. He was accurate on deep balls. He had guys underneath. He looked in control of the offense. He knew where to go. He was on time. He was on target. He just looked like a pro. When he threw the football, like there was some real juice on it. It's impressive. Stetson Bennett, similarly, had a really good day. 16 of 24 passing, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. He made several good throws down the field. He made throws from inside the pocket, outside the pocket. He did a good job extending plays. I just like how so many of his pass attempts were targeted beyond the sticks. Daniel Jones, a lot of the passes that he threw were not. It's like 7 yards and closer. Let's go. And that's fine. Throwing the ball short occasionally, that's a good thing. But at some point, you have to raise the level of risk a little bit. And on 3rd and 8, you have to throw the ball 9 yards down the field, not 5, and then hope that your receiver can make a play. Now, sometimes you have to do that, and I'm obviously, but I like it when I know that my quarterbacks can deliver the football on time, on target, on 3rd and 8, when you got to have a first down. And watching Daniel Jones Thursday night against the Ravens, it didn't make me confident that he could do that. Part of that's the lack of arm strength, just not really, just wasn't a ton of juice on the ball whenever he was throwing it. Another part of it is just watching him, he just doesn't look like an NFL quarterback. And then, we're going to watch Richardson on Saturday and be like, yeah, he looks like he looks like a football player. He looks like a guy who can play quarterback because he's, 6'4", 235 pounds or whatever it is. And, whenever he throws the football, like it's obvious how easy it is. Like playing quarterback for Daniel Jones, it didn't look easy. It did look pretty easy for Sam Howell, though, another backup quarterback in the NFL who had a better first preseason game than Daniel Jones did. Sam Howell, 11-13, 105 yards passing with a rushing touchdown. You talk about a dude who takes risks and just rips it. He's ripping the football all over the field, just throwing bullets. And so many of his pass attempts came past the first down marker. And it looked good. He looked like he threw the football. He threw the football how I expect for an NFL quarterback too. There was pace, and it looked nice. Jackson Dart, I think, was the ultimate example of what I wanted to see from Daniel Jones in that first preseason game. So Jackson Dart, obviously backup quarterback for the Giants, rookie out of Ole Miss. He was 12 of 19 for 154 yards and 1 touchdown. And there were a lot of underneath completions. I thought Brian Dable did a good job of protecting Jackson Dart. They threw several screens. Jackson Dart completed a lot of slant routes and kind of underneath passes. And there were a couple of plays where a wide receiver would make some good plays, right? He'd catch it and then, he'd break a tackle and run off an extra 9 yards or whatever it is, right? So, that's fine. And that is going to have to be a part of the Colts offense this year if Daniel Jones ends up being the starter, right? The ability to hit guys underneath and then Josh Downs makes a play or Jonathan Taylor makes a play or whoever it is. That has to be part of the Colts offense because Daniel Jones just isn't going to drop back and rip darts all over the field. But with Jackson Dart, there were a couple of plays where it's wow, that looks really good. He had one play where he threw a beautiful deep ball for a touchdown. There was another play where he, eluded some pressure, stepped up in the pocket, made a throw on the run on 3rd and 7 for a first down. And he found a guy running a crosser over the middle. There were a couple of plays where it's okay, that looks like an NFL quarterback. Daniel Jones didn't have any plays like that. And then you got Tanner McKee, who, someone in the YouTube chat earlier said that Tanner McKee should be a starting quarterback somewhere. I don't know about that. 20-25 for 252 yards and 2 touchdowns in a preseason game is pretty good, but it is the preseason. Let's keep that in mind. He was in total control of the offense the entire game. He made every throw. He made it look easy. And that's the thing with these Colts quarterbacks, both Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. I don't feel like either one of them make the position look easy. Even when Mahomes does the impossible, it's just effortless when he does it. When Joe Burrow does something amazing, it just looks easy to a point where you don't even realize that what he did was so incredibly hard. Same goes for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Daniel Jones makes playing quarterback in the NFL appear how it is. Really difficult. Same goes for Anthony Richardson. And when it comes to Daniel Jones in the preseason, and when it comes to Anthony Richardson in the preseason, I don't expect them to be amazing from start to finish. I'm just hoping for consistency in terms of completing some underneath passes, and then a couple of, oh, wow, look at that throw, or oh, wow, look at that run, or whatever it is. Just a couple of those moments. And when it came to Daniel Jones against the Ravens, there weren't any moments like that. And that's disappointing. And it seems like 21 passing attempts should provide enough opportunity to have a moment or two like that. And there just weren't. And so that is a little disappointing. That is the one thing with Anthony Richardson starting that I don't think we're going to have to work, or Anthony Richardson taking the bulk of the reps against the Packers on Saturday. That is something that I don't think that we're going to have to be worried about. I think he's going to make plenty of moments where we're like, oh, wow, that's why he was the number 4 overall pick, because he just did, he just broke 3 tackles and then, found, Michael Pittman Jr. 27 yards downfield, and he threw it by just barely flicking his wrist. So we will not be short on big time, amazing moments from him on Saturday, but I do think that it was important for Daniel Jones to look like he had a little bit more juice to him than what he clearly does, than what he clearly lacks. There is no juice with Daniel Jones. It is a lot of Gardner Minshew stuff, which is fine. You can go 9-8 with Gardner Minshew and maybe give yourself a chance at winning this division, but doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in terms of long-term success. Even, the Geno Smiths and the Sam Darnolds and the Baker Mayfields of the world, guys who have resurrected their careers elsewhere after bouncing around a little bit, like, you can see it early. Like, you can go back to Sam Darnold's rookie year where he's playing with the Jets, and he makes one throw where he's rolling left, like full sprint, and then he like turns his hips and he's on the run and he drops the arm ankle and he just fires a missile. And he hits his receiver like perfectly. And just an incredible play. Like you see plays like that kind of get you excited and pique your interest. And then obviously he goes to the Vikings last year. And from time to time, like, the Vikings would ask him to make a play, and he would. That's why they won 14 games. With Geno Smith, even when he was drafted by the Jets all those years ago, like, you could kind of see it early. Like, yeah, very, very athletic, the ability to avoid the pressure. And as he's gotten older and he's, spent time in the film room and he's just kind of understood how to play quarterback, now he's Geno Smith, fringe top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Baker Mayfield, like, you could see the talent. He's a decent athlete and has a really, really strong arm. And so, like, you can see the things even when the situation isn't perfect. And we've never really seen it from Daniel Jones, and we've seen a little bit of it from Anthony Richardson. And that's why people want for Anthony Richardson, and should want, by the way, for Anthony Richardson to be the starter. There's just a lot more juice there. And say what you want, but the best teams in the NFL have juice at the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts, I get it. He's probably like the 9th best quarterback in the NFL, 9 or 10, somewhere in there. But, like, the dude's got juice, and he can hit big plays down the field, and he can, escape pressure and go pick up a first down when you really need it. I don't think I have to explain the juice that Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Lamar all have. You have to have it at the quarterback position if you want to win big. Daniel Jones doesn't. Anthony Richardson absolutely does, and that's why he should be the starter. And I'm hoping that we see a little bit of the juice on Saturday against the Packers, and we also see the consistency that we're all begging for him to have. To his credit, he's apparently been really good during camp. He had another very consistent day yesterday, as did Daniel Jones. It is the talk of the town amongst the insiders, and it's not that big a deal. I'll tell you why in 4 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt. Uh-oh.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. You can get that wherever you download your apps. I'm doing something I don't normally do. I'm eating right now. I try not to eat like big food during my show. Like I'll snack on, like a little protein pack or something like that. Raspberries, big raspberry guy. But I'm eating chicken and broccoli right now because I got to fuel up for all these butt kickings that I will be dishing out at the Indiana State Fair during the first annual Dan Dockett Show 3-point shootout. If you would like to receive an L today, I will be passing them out from noon to 3. Show up, lace them up, and let's shoot some threes. You can shoot them. I will make them. It's going to be a blast one way or the other, so get out there to the Indiana State Fairgrounds. It's $2 Tuesday. It's going to be just a blast being out there, hanging out. Come out, lose to me in a nice little 3-point shooting contest, and say what's up to Dan because he should be out there as well. Now, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones both had good practices yesterday. And anytime Anthony Richardson has a good practice, it is the talk of Colts Twitter. Oh, Anthony Richardson had another big-time day today. Oh, Anthony Richardson had his best day of 11-on-11s that I've ever seen him have. All this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, no one wants to bring up the fact that Daniel Jones played really well too. And I think it's funny, the lack of publicity that Daniel Jones is getting. And he was really good yesterday, 21-28, completed, that's a 75% completion percentage for my math majors out there. Anthony Richardson was 18 of 23, completed 78% of his passes during 11-on-11s. As I said, saw a lot of tweets on Richardson's day. Didn't see very many on Daniel Jones's day. And to be fair, Anthony Richardson clearly had a better day than Daniel Jones. And I know that because if you ask Colts fans, the most important thing in the world is completion percentage. And Anthony Richardson's completion percentage was higher. Therefore, he must have had the better day. Now, in all seriousness, I would probably give the edge to Daniel Jones yesterday because Anthony Richardson apparently threw a really bad interception to Charvarius Ward. Colts' new corner who is hopefully going to show up and really kind of alter the rest of this Colts defense because the Colts defense needs a lot of help. And about the interception, I'm going to make all you Colts fans very, very excited here really quickly. Anthony Richardson threw an interception because the Colts showed an exotic blitz look. Exotic blitz look from the Indianapolis Colts defense. Just another reminder that the days of Gus Bradley are long gone. No more Gus Bradley vanilla cover 3 matching zone defense that you can see Center Grove run on Friday nights. Not a thing anymore. We're going exotic blitz packages, and we're going to play man-to-man, and then we're going to switch it up and play cover 2 zone. It's going to be awesome watching the multiplicity of this Indianapolis Colts defense. So that is exciting. So they show this exotic blitz. Anthony Richardson misreads it. Charvarius Ward baits him into throwing a ball to Michael Pittman Jr. He jumps the route, and he picks it off because he's Charvarius Ward, and he's a very, very good player. Now, aside from that, though, great day. I mean, aside from that one play, he was 18 of 22 passing. That is really impressive. But he should be. And Daniel Jones should complete 75% of his passes. Justin Wally is out for the year with a torn ACL. Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore, and Nick Cross didn't practice yesterday. That means that the Colts starting safety, starting strong safety didn't practice. Their second, third, and fourth best corner and fifth best cornerbacks didn't play. They should have a field day. The Colts had a 7th round pick playing strong safety, and their 6th best corner was playing opposite Charvarius Ward. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson should have great days as long as the cornerback room for the Colts continues to be this banged up. This is like not something to celebrate. This is something for us to be like, good, they did what they're supposed to do, and then we move on. They both led, by the way, touchdown drives to close practice. They each had the opportunity to run the 2-minute drill. They both scored touchdowns, and they should, because once again, they're playing against backup secondary players. Jeez Louise. Now, when there's a quarterback competition going on, and this is not just a Colts thing, this is an everywhere thing, that takes precedent over every other story going on in training camp. And this Colts quarterback competition between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, I have discussed this more than anything else because this is the biggest story of training camp. And that has led to me burying the lead a little bit of the Colts offense. Because no matter who plays quarterback for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor has to be the best player on this Colts offense. And in addition to that, he is the best player on the Colts offense. And he has to once again be dominant in order for them to have a chance to make the playoffs. He's 26 years old, which is slightly concerning. He's going to turn 27 in January. This is kind of around the age where running backs start to fall off a little bit. Now, good news, he's a few hundred carries away from the carry number that running backs kind of start to fall off at as well. So I think he's going to have a good year. Maybe he slows down a little bit at the end of the year, but I don't think that would be an abnormal thing for running backs in the NFL as, you slowly get nicked up throughout the course of the season. He just has to stay healthy. He's only had 2 seasons in his career where he's had 300 carries or more. His second year in the NFL and last year. That's it. And he has to get to that 300 carry count again this year. And preferably, he needs to do it over the course of the entire season in all 17 games. He's only played a full season once. His second year in the NFL, he missed 3 games last year. And it's brutal when you're turning around having to hand the ball off to Trey Sermon. I think he's going to have a good year. He just has to stay healthy. Like, if you told me today that Jonathan Taylor was absolutely going to reach 300 carries and play in all 17 games, I would be very inclined to take the Colts over 7.5 wins. Okay, like that is a minimum of 18 carries per game. Now, I prefer it when the best skill player on the offense plays wide receiver. But the downside of your best offensive player playing wide receiver is it's tougher to get them the ball. Like they are going to touch the ball less just because it's tougher to get them the football. Like a lot of receptions for a wide receiver is around 10. Like if Justin Jefferson has 12 receptions, you feel really good about his day. If he has 8, then you feel really good about your ability to get him the football. And that's the good thing about running backs. It's much easier to get Jonathan Taylor the football than it is Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or any of these other elite wide receivers in the NFL. Because you can just turn around and say, here you go, Jonathan, go run. And then he does. And like that's a really good thing. That's very important for the Colts. Like, could you imagine if the Colts' best offensive skill player played receiver and we were relying on Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson to actually like throw them the football? Not great. I like that they can just turn it around and hand the ball off to the best player on the offense. Now, the Colts have a history of saving Jonathan Taylor for late in the season, which I understand because it's a long season and they accumulate a lot of hits and all that kind of stuff, okay? I get it. They don't need to do that necessarily, but they do need to save him for the fourth quarter of these games. And last year, there were too many instances where he would be the only running back to have an actual load. And what I mean by that is, like, there'd be games where he'd have like 28 carries and Trey Sermon would have 2. Or, Jonathan, like, there's one game where Jonathan Taylor had like 30 carries and no one else had 1. It was a game where Joe Flacco started, and so on. And that can't happen this year. And I do credit the Colts for taking steps to kind of help relieve some of the load off of him. I think part of why he got hurt last year was because the load was just too big for him to carry on his own. So what the Colts do, they go out, they use a 4th-round pick on DJ Giddens. They go out and they add Khalil Herbert. They bring back Tyler Goodson because they need guys in that running back room to kind of help relieve Jonathan Taylor of the load. That way he can cross the finish line healthy, because that is the only way that the Colts are going to have a chance to make the playoffs. Their best offensive player has to stay healthy all year. And if he does, he should have a big year. I have questions about the Colts offensive line in terms of the pass protection. I didn't think that they were super great at that last year, but I have no questions about their ability to run block. The Colts should be able to run the football well this year because they ran the football well last year. Now I get it. Will Fry's one of the better offensive guards in football is gone. That's okay. Ryan Kelly, he's gone as well. Two starting offensive linemen for the Colts. But Tanner Bortolini played a pretty decent amount last year. Matt Gonsalves played a lot last year because, Braden Smith left for personal reasons. Jonathan Taylor averaged 102 yards per game and 4.7 yards per carry behind a banged-up offensive line. If the Colts can run the football like that again, then they're going to win games. That was like both of those numbers are top 10 in the NFL. And that's not even including what Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson both also bring to the run game. The Colts were 9th in yards per carry last year as a team. That is everyone's carries. That's Tyler Goodson's and Trey Sermon's and Joe Flacco's and Anthony Richardson's and Jonathan Taylor's. And they did that while running the football on 48% of their offensive plays. That number needs to be over 50%. I'll be honest, the 48% higher than what I thought it was going to be. But the number needs to be over 50% this year. This needs to be a run-first football team, considering the stable of backs that they now have between Giddens, Herbert, Goodson, and, of course, Jonathan Taylor. Whoever the starting quarterback is, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, they can both run. If you look at the best year of Daniel Jones' career, it was the year in which he ran the football a lot. And let's just be honest, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, I think we're all going to trust their legs more than their arms. Simple as that. Also, running the football makes everything easier on your quarterback. And that's the biggest thing for the Colts this year. They have to find ways to make life as easy on Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson as possible. Because if you're relying on those guys to go win you football games, you aren't going to win very many football games. But if you're just relying on those guys to make a play or two a game, then you give yourself a chance. But you can only do that if you can consistently run the football. And the best way for them to do that is to keep Jonathan Taylor healthy. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, the AP poll came out for this year's college football season. We're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the season. I can't wait. I'm sure you're excited as well. Indiana came in ranked 20th, but every year there is a team ranked in the top 10 preseason poll that finishes the year unranked. I know who it's going to be, and I'll tell you who in 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Coming up, 20 minutes, the Dan Dockett Show goes live from the State Fair. When the show's over, I'm getting in my car and I'm booking it, getting there as quickly as I can. And, I will be there prepared to take on and beat any and all challengers in the first annual Dan Dockett 3-point contest. It is $2 Tuesday, but the L's I'm handing out will be free. If you somehow, some way, miraculously beat me, probably not going to happen. But if it somehow, some way does, I do believe that there are prizes, which I don't know what we're going to do with all those prizes because you guys are going to beat me. Come on now. Come on. It's not going to happen. That's right. Indiana, however, they will be beaten here at some point throughout the day. That's just the very simple, or at some point this season, they will undoubtedly lose just because they have to play Oregon on the road. They have to play Penn State on the road. Like they're not winning both of those. Maybe one, but not both. They were ranked 20th in the AP poll that came out yesterday, the official preseason AP poll, which, everyone looks forward to because everyone likes to be upset about, where someone is ranking their favorite college football team. The teams that didn't get ranked, they're upset because they felt like they should have been for whatever reason and all that kind of stuff. So Indiana, they come in at 20. That seems pretty fair to me. There's a lot of transfers. There's some questions about how good everyone is going to be. So we'll kind of see how all of that works with Indiana. But look, it's Coach Cignetti. It's year 2. I'm assuming things are going to continue moving in the right direction. They have, another transfer quarterback coming in who's supposed to be really good. So that is a great, great sign. Now, every year there is a team ranked in the top 10 that finishes the year unranked. And last year it was Florida State. They come out, they play a game in Ireland, and there's the dog poop guy who says that they lose to Boston College. Then, he'll eat dog poop, and then they lost, and then he deleted his account. What a coward. And Florida State finishes the year unranked. It just doesn't really work out for them, right? And then this year, that team is going to be Miami. I don't think that it's going to work out for them. Okay, I am not a believer in Carson Beck. He had a really rough year last year at Georgia. He ends up getting hurt. He comes into the season. Everyone's like, this guy's going to be the number 1 overall pick. And then he plays a full year at Georgia and has to go back to school, which, that right there tells you he was not going to be the number 1 overall pick. And so I'm not a believer in Carson Wentz. I think a large part of why Miami won as many games as they did last year is because of Cam Ward, a guy who actually was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And I don't think Carson Beck is as good as Cam Ward. Now, to get to the thing that really upsets people, there's 6 teams in the Big Ten that are ranked in the preseason poll. Okay, obviously, Ohio State, they're ranked 3rd. Penn State, they're ranked 2nd. You've got, Oregon ranked 7th. Next, you've got Illinois, who's ranked 12th. Michigan at 14. And then Indiana is ranked 20th. That's very respectable, having 6 teams ranked in the top 25. No, the top 20. Let me restate that. And then you've got the SEC. And I just know that everyone up here in Big Ten country, you just love the SEC. Isn't it great? They have 10 teams ranked. Texas, ranked number 1. Georgia is 5th. Alabama 8. LSU 9. You got South Carolina at 13, Florida at 15, Oklahoma at 18, Texas A&M at 19, Ole Miss at 21, and then Tennessee is ranked 24th. Now, to be fair, Tennessee is ranked significantly higher in the coaches poll. Wow. Okay. Anyway, everyone always gets upset. It's like bias, SEC bias, all this kind of stuff, which is great. I don't think it's SEC bias. I think that the preseason rankings are designed to reflect the rosters, right? Like that is the biggest thing. And mainly when I say rosters, I mean the talent. Like which rosters are the most talented rosters in the country. And it's usually easy to identify the best rosters, right? And those teams are ranked 1 through 5. Everything else, though, it's really tough. And so you just kind of fall back on talent. And let's just be honest, most of the talent, not all of it, ends up in the SEC, mainly just because of geography. Like most of the best high school football played in the country is played in the South. Texas, Florida, Alabama has obviously a lot of tradition. California's also obviously in there, and so on. And so because of that, the SEC tends to have just a little bit more talent. Also, by the way, the state of Mississippi produces more NFL players per capita than any other state. Okay, just throwing that one out there as well. And then, compared to the Big Ten, like there's really good high school football here in Indiana. There's really good high school football over in Ohio and so on. But most of the talent ends up in the SEC, and the transfer portal is really where the Big Ten has made up a lot of ground. I think that the Big Ten does a better job recruiting the transfer portal than the SEC does. And that's why we've seen a narrowing of the gap between the two conferences. And people get all up in arms every year about these rankings. And they don't really matter. One of the top 10 teams this year is going to finish the season unranked. We tend to know who the truly elite teams are. And they're usually ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's the reality of it. Usually, if you're ranked in the top 5, I feel pretty good about you making the college football playoff in this new format. But outside of that, no one really knows. Like last year, of the teams ranked between 16th and 25th, every single one of them, except for Miami, finished the year unranked, and Miami was ranked 18th to finish the season. Okay, and this is part of what makes college football fun. No one really knows who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, who's going to be average, and so on. Okay, that's the reality of it. And so, yes, Indiana's ranked 20th, and we're all very excited for their season. But last year, if you were ranked 20th, you didn't finish the season ranked. So we'll see how it goes. Very excited for college football. We're about, we're not even 2 weeks away. We're not 9 days away? No, I'm really bad at math. We're less than 2 weeks away. Let's just stick with that. We're less than 3 months away from Indiana basketball getting underway. They just got back from Puerto Rico. They went down there. They won all of their games. And we don't know if, they're going to be great. We don't know if they're going to be terrible. We just know that they won a few games in Puerto Rico against teams from overseas. But so while we can't learn how good these teams are, I do think that we can learn something. I think we learned that Indiana's going to shoot a lot of threes, which I think is good. I think that's fun. I think that there's going to be a little bit more offensive firepower. I think that they're going to move the ball better than what the Mike Woodson teams did. I felt like so much of the Mike Woodson offense was high ball screen for Trey Galloway. If that doesn't work, then we'll run the high ball screen again. And if it doesn't work, then we'll throw the ball down into the block to Khalil Ware or Malik Renew or Omar Ballo or whoever else. That kind of felt like the extent of the offense for Mike Woodson. And I think that under Coach DeVries, the offense, the ball is going to move a little bit more. You're going to get a little bit more player movement. You're going to have guys cutting just a little bit more often. So I think that the offense is going to look better, and there's going to be more shooting, and that's going to lead to Indiana scoring more points under Coach DeVries this year than they ever did under Mike Woodson. I also think, now I'm not like putting my full stamp on this, but you got to be like a little competitive to be down by 20 plus in 2 games and battle your way back to win both of them. Like you have to, right? That also points to offensive firepower. Like you have to score a whole bunch of points in order to make that happen. In addition to that as well, like you have to be able to guard for long stretches to run down a 20-point deficit. So I do think that there are some things to be excited about with Indiana basketball. I think they're going to be much more entertaining this year compared to the style that we saw them play under Mike Woodson. Just because they can shoot, and let's be honest, it's way more fun to watch your favorite team score 85 points and win than it is to watch them score 65 points and win. Now, it is more fun to watch your team score 65 points and win than it is to watch them score 85 points and lose. No way around that. So, in addition to that, I wanted to touch on one more thing before I close the show. The UFC is something I've always wanted to really get into. It is like boxing. I really enjoy. It's just like, who doesn't like watching people fight? Let's just be honest. Like there's something in us that enjoys watching people exchange blows. It's why the Coliseum way back in the day was such a huge hit. Like there's just something inside of us that likes to watch people fight and really kind of battle it out a little bit. And the UFC is the newest, most popular version of that for us. And for a long time, it was on ESPN, pay-per-view, all that kind of stuff. That is no longer happening. I don't know if you missed this, but Paramount and UFC agreed on like a 7-year, $7.5 billion deal. Billion with a B. And I know that there are UFC fans around here, and that's, awesome and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just kind of curious. I will take any and all recommendations on which fighters to root for when it comes to the UFC in this new deal. No more pay-per-view. All of the fights, I believe, are going to be like on CBS, so you could just like pull them up on cable. I think it's awesome. Boxing has just really kind of ruined itself because boxing, I think, is a little too individualistic. They should have a boxing league, but that's neither here. A boxing league with the best fighters. I know that there are boxing leagues, but UFC, like they've figured it out. Dana White, whether you like him or not, he's figured out a way to put together an awesome league, and now the fights are coming to us for free, which is going to be awesome. I believe that there's going to be a UFC fight in Chicago coming up here soon as well, which will be even more fun. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into the show. I'll be back tomorrow. Jake Arthur is going to join the show at 11 tomorrow. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next, live from the fair. Rob Dibble coming on at 1 o'clock today to talk a little bit of baseball. It's going to be a good show. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.